Welcome to La Verdad Duele. What is that? The truth. The truth that hurts. Even though we're not intending to hurt anybody's feelings, we know that we may share information that many people have strong opinions on. This is solely based on the fact that we love sharing information and we love passing down knowledge. And this podcast is all about that. And we hope you can enjoy that. Let's get to it. Welcome, Puyaka Puyaka. I'm your host, Tijani Musa. The special guest in the studio today is a friend that I met while we were studying at George Mason University, and I have asked her to come to the studio to talk to us about how she financed her way through college, hard work, determination, calculated decision-making, and landing her dream job, while overcoming personal and systematic challenges through confidence building. The guest is Tanya. Tanya is a proud Nova girl, originally from Falls Church, Virginia. She's a proud graduate of Northern Virginia Community College, then George Mason University. In the beginning, she thought that she wanted to become a journalist and planned to study journalism or mass communication until she took an international relations course that changed her mind. She has previously interned for the African Union Mission to the UN and the DC Mayor's Office on African Affairs. Additionally, she has previously worked as an elementary school teacher in Incheon, South Korea through the Fulbright Korea ETA program. In 2019, she received her master's in international security policy from Columbia University. In September of this year, she was sworn in to the U.S. Foreign Service. She is now a U.S. Foreign Service Officer preparing for her first tour to Saudi Arabia. She speaks 5 languages and counting. In her free time, she loves to work out, cook vegan meal, and dancing. Tanya, welcome to the La Verdad Duele Podcast studio.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Tanya, before we get started, I know that you speak 5 different languages. Can you say hello to each and every one of those languages before we get into the conversation today?
I didn't know we were starting off with a test. Now,
yes.
Do you want me to say them and then you guess what they are, or am I supposed to say them and tell you what they are?
Let's start with me guessing what they are first. If I fail, and then you can go ahead and tell us.
Okay, first one, hello.
That's English.
Good. Next one, bonjour.
French.
So there's 2 for this next one. It's 안녕하십니까 and 안녕하세요.
Korean.
Good. Next one, marhaba.
Arabic.
And last one, lafia.
I believe that sounds like Arabic as well.
No. So this is actually Gambay, and it is actually my parents' mother language that's spoken in Chad.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
But Chad has, along with Gambay, also Arabic and French. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some Arabic influence there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have guessed that one because now that we've played the language game, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell me where you are from, like your parents are from. Yeah. What is your origin?
Okay, dope. So I'm Tanya, and so my family is originally from Chad, which is in Central Africa. But if you ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from Falls Church, Virginia. That was where I was raised. That's where my roots are, values, and even the current career path that I'm on, I think was heavily influenced by being raised there. I'm just a very proud Nova girl. People laugh at me because I rep Northern Virginia the same way people rep New York or Texas. Because I just think like this is, it's just a great area. So yeah, and I spent a majority of my life in Northern Virginia, even began my higher education in Virginia. I graduated from George Mason University. That's where I met the one and only Tijani. And before leaving the area. And I just recently came back now due to work.
That's awesome. So before we continue to have this conversation, let's go ahead, walk me through your college journey from Nova community college. What were your involvement at Nova? Let's start with Nova first. Nova Community College. I know after high school, you went to the Northern Virginia Community College.
That's right. Yeah.
Why did you decide to go there? How did you get there? And what were some of your involvement there?
So to better answer that question, can we start a little bit further back in high school?
Yes.
So during my senior year, it was kind of when I found out that my parents weren't going to be assisting me with the education cost of my higher education. So truthfully, beginning my college experience at Nova was really just a cost thing. But Nova is considered one of the best community colleges in the entire nation. So I was really lucky and fortunate because it's very well resourced. So previously, prior to starting my higher education, I actually wanted to go down the route of journalism. So I had anticipated that I would be studying mass media or journalism. And then I arrived at Nova. And in the beginning, I'll be honest, I was still a bit bogged down because there was such a stigma around community college back then that, if you went there, then maybe you weren't as ambitious or did as well as those that went straight to 4 years. So I'll be honest, my first semester, I didn't really do much. But my right before my second semester, I actually spoke to my counselor who turned into like a mentor for me. And he saw how down I was. And he said, you know what, I think that you make a perfect campus ambassador. So you should apply for that. And so I applied for that and I received it. So that was kind of the first thing that I did that kind of got me more involved outside of just going to class and going home. I loved being a campus ambassador. In addition to that, I also took part in a public service organization. And we did a lot of community outreach, a lot of community helped. I remember we worked with Habitats for Humanities a lot. I did a couple of projects for them through this organization. And I also took part in leadership conferences, which was really awesome as well, being able to hear from leaders in varying fields as well as get to connect, because there was a Nova specific one, but then there was also a community college wide one. So getting to meet leaders from other community colleges within the state was also really awesome. And then just meeting really different people was probably the biggest takeaway for me at Nova, because I came from such a diverse friend group and they all just gave me something different, but something that helped to mold and make me better in some shape, some way or form. And then, so at this point, I had taken my first international relations course. And that was actually it's funny because I kind of went into it just like, I'm interested in international affairs. I wonder what I can take away from this course. Mm-hmm. It might have even been just an elective. I'm not even sure anymore. But coming out of that course, it just forever changed my career trajectory. And I no longer wanted something just domestic, but I wanted a career in international affairs. So that's when I kind of broadened up my career perspectives to not just, domestic journalism, but I wanted an international component to it. So after that, I actually, the summer after I graduated from Nova, I went up to New York and I interned at the African Union mission to the UN. And that opportunity came from me volunteering with a organization up in New York, actually, that did a lot of outreach specifically within the African diaspora and did a lot of mentorship and empowerment programs for young African women. So I felt really connected to the cause. So I also was volunteering through this organization, and at one of our outreach events, I believe the ambassador of the AU happened to have been there in the crowd, and I gave a keynote speech. And, that's really, the rest was history. I think he reached out to the org people and requested that I come and intern for him. So that was a really crazy and awesome experience to be only 19 and to be, in this really big place doing a lot of important work. And then afterwards, I came back to Virginia and continued my education at Mason, which is where we met. And at Mason, I was more involved with the Women and Gender Studies office because that was my minor. So I remember I spent a lot of time in there. I took part in a lot of their programming. And yeah, I think for me, it was like, because while I was at Nova, I did so much that at Mason, I was like, I'm going to choose one thing. And that's all I'm going to focus on because I was getting a little tired. But yeah, I did a lot of great things through the Women and Gender Studies section.
Amazing. At Nova, you were so involved. You were doing all these things. And I was reading somewhere that in 2014, you had gone through the PAC, which is the Political Action Committee, and you went to Richmond to talk to leaders over there about campus resources, about college resources for students. And then you left for this internship to New York, and you were doing all these amazing things. And then you came back to the DMV area, and then you decided to transfer to George Mason University, where we met. And before we got onto the podcast, you mentioned that you have a story to tell. What is your story on how we met?
So, coming out of Nova, I had built a really strong community for myself. And we didn't necessarily all graduate and transfer at the same time. Mm-hmm. And also Nova was just much more intimate. And if I could be frank, just made me feel as though they cared a bit more about students. Their student bodies was, first of all, a lot smaller than George Mason's was, but it just felt like one big community that was really cheering you on. Whereas like Mason was more of a place where you had to find your way. And that was okay too. But I think in the beginning, it was kind of hard to adjust. And you were one of the first people that I actually met at Mason. I remember you gave me like an informal tour, and I don't know. I think you're just really great at reading people, because I felt like you could read that I really just needed a friend and someone to just kind of help me, understand the layout and, navigate Mason. And you did that for me. And the story I wanted to share, and I'm curious if you remember, but after you gave me an informal tour, I remember that we went back to your dorm and I was hungry. And so you made me a Nutella sandwich.
Yeah.
And I was so moved by it that I went out and bought a big jug of Nutella and asked someone to sneak it in front of your door as a way to say, thank you. Because I'm actually one of those people who, like, the little things matter so much more to me. And when people take the time to just, show you that bit of kindness when you genuinely need it, like, I always try to pay it forward in an even bigger way. And I think like that is probably why we're even sitting here today, because, I'm also someone that, those who were there for me when I really needed them, those who were my friend and showed me kindness, like, you can count on me for the rest of your life, So thank you again for that Nutella sandwich.
You're trying to make me cry, but I'm not going to cry because I don't want the fans. Yeah. So, but I remember that story, and I remember coming back to the residence hall. I asked the students there, I said, who brought this thing here? No one, they refused to tell me how that Nutella got into my room. And so that was a really good story, because that's how I see it. My passion was always, when I see students that are transferring from Nova Community College to George Mason, I put myself in their shoes. Nova Community College is a small college, and then they come to George Mason, over 35,000 students. And because all the programs that we ran on campus at George Mason was catering to students that live on campus. And so we weren't really catering to those students like yourself who is who is commuting from home, and then you come here and take your classes. And most of the time, what happens is you come here, you take your classes, and then you leave, and you're not
Right.
involved on campus. And so when I had the opportunity to talk with students that are coming from Nova, that's how I was able to establish these relationships. And so when I met you, right away, I was like, this is a special somebody, and she's gonna do amazing things. And she seems like she's a little lost, and so let me offer some help with her. That's how I established the friendship with you, and it happens to till this day. This was almost 5 years ago now, and we're still here talking.
So I guess it's your turn to make me cry now, huh?
No. I mean, me and you, we always talk about because we studied the same in undergrad. We did the same major, global affairs, and we talked about, we share our dreams of what we wanted to do, international development, or all these things we wanted to do. And we talked about how if you become an U.S. ambassador, we'll stay in touch. If you become an African ambassador, we'll stay in touch. And I'm so glad we're still keeping in touch and recording this episode right here, because we've stayed true to the conversations that we've had over the years.
Absolutely. And I would like, your fans to take note that I know it sounds super duper cliche, and when I heard it, I thought the same thing when people would tell you that take note of the people who are sitting next to you. You don't know what they're going to be tomorrow. And I think because, we were all young, and you just look at your silly, goofy classmate. You're like, oh, whatever, but it really is true. And not to say like be fake or anything, because just like you said, our relationship from the jump was really a genuine friendship that has grown and, lasted all these years. But, it just starts with that small act of kindness that you showed me. And, like you said, 5 years later, here we are. So, don't underestimate the power of kindness. Don't underestimate taking the time to just, help someone out in their moment of need. You never know what they might be able to provide you in the future.
That is pretty much a little background information on how we met. Let's take it back a step further. We are going to talk to you. We have you here to talk to you about how you managed to pay yourself through college. This was not an easy thing that happened. You, from the start, you were very smart, knowing that your parents weren't going to be able to afford to pay for you for college. So you ended up going to a community college. You saved money for 2 years there, because the cost that you were paying there for 2 years is way less than what you could have paid had you gone to George Mason, or had you gone to the first choice of university that you applied for, because that was a smart financial decision. But things were not just so rosy and all amazing along the way. You've overcome. I was looking at a YouTube video that you recorded about depression and self-esteem, and you have the recipe, you have the signature, you have the secrets to confidence. How does a young woman build confidence? And if before answering that question, I want you to give us, if you can, give us some story of what happened to you 5 or 6 years ago that made you build that confidence, and how you were able to build that confidence, and how that confidence has helped you to this day.
Wow. Okay. Full disclosure. This guy went behind my back and watched this video and didn't tell me ahead of time. I did not see this coming. Wow. Yeah. No, but thank you. Thank you so much for that. And it's a really excellent question. I would say that, and I think this gets back to the idea of perspective, and whether or not, when you look at a glass, you see it as half empty or half full. Because initially when, it was made clear that my parents weren't going to be assisting me financially with my higher education, I was petrified. I was 17 years old. I barely knew what was what. I didn't know what the FAFSA was. I didn't know anything really.
Right.
But after working through that fear, I actually got really excited. And I was like, this is actually very empowering, because essentially what this means is that I am the captain of my ship. I am the captain of my life, basically. I don't have to worry about trying to appease anyone because no one gets a say. I'm the one, if you are not paying, then your opinion really doesn't matter. So because
Right.
I'm the one paying for this education, I can do it my way. So actually that was super empowering. On the confidence aspect, and I would say that I think this is actually a very relevant situation currently. I think people are now, some for the first time, waking up to see that America doesn't look the same to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, as a young Black girl, not really seeing yourself reflected in society, whether it's, beauty or whatever, that has, an effect on someone. And, even within my immediate environment, I never really was told words of affirmation. I really didn't have any positive words that were constantly being poured onto me. So
Mm-hmm.
I was really, my confidence was really depleted. And then the biggest hit was that I now needed to, pay for college and do it all by myself. So it really just took me down for a second. But it really forced me to look within myself, because I think even back then I understood that if I wanted to be successful, I needed to deal with all of my shortcomings, and my confidence or lack of confidence in myself was a big one. And so, it's a really messy and hard process to just sit down with yourself and, take off the veneer and just identify the issues that are stopping you from being your best self, the things that get in the way of you pursuing all of your goals. So it really was. I did a lot of reading, I did a lot of thinking, and I'm a woman of faith, so I also did a lot of praying, and just each and every day, just try to be better. And ironically, the thing that made me most confident was just being receptive to criticism,
Mm-hmm.
having other people give me that feedback, having other people tell me, like, this is what you still need to work on, this is what you're doing well. That was really helpful for me, and it gave me guidance. And it's like, okay, I'm heading in the right direction. Also, surrounding myself with confident people, surrounding myself with people that I respected and people that I aspired to be like one day was also something that I did a lot, because self-esteem, I like to say self-esteem isn't something that's built in a vacuum. So no one should ever feel like they have to do it by themselves on their own in a dark room. Like, absolutely not. Like, you can reach out to people who you look up to and respect. You can read empowering content. You can surround yourself with empowering images and messages that can just help you build your confidence each and every day. And lastly, I would say that it is absolutely critical. And that was what I was talking about in that video, is that, when someone has confidence in themselves and their capacity, that's when they're truly able to shoot for the stars. Because my community college friends will tell you this, but when I was in community college, I was telling people, I said, I'm going to an Ivy League university. And everyone like looked at me sideways. Some people laughed. Was like, "What are you talking about? No, that's not possible." But 4 years later, I graduated with a master's in international security policy from Columbia University, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for me working and building up my self confidence and self esteem.
All right, so that's really good. And when you were when you're speaking with that organization, AW Lead,
Mm-hmm.
you also were talking about, just right now, hearing you describing self confidence. You sounded to me like you're talking about also having role models, somebody that you look up to around you, and surrounding yourself with positivity, surrounding yourself with positive people. Growing up or now, do you have somebody that you look up to, a role model, and how did you seek that person?
So I actually have a lot of role models, and I want to use this time to underline for, your fans that, I think we often think of role models as someone who has to have more experience or someone who has to be older than
Mm-hmm.
us. But truthfully, your role models can be anyone around you, anyone who's doing anything that I really respect or aspire. So I want to make very clear that not all of my role models are people that are, senior officials or people that are ahead of me. Some of them are people that are, my colleagues, and some of them are people that are even younger than me, just people that inspire me. I think you seek them out in different ways. Sometimes it happens that it was formed through work relationships. Sometimes it happens that we attended an event together and I was able to get their contact information. But I'm also someone who I'm able to have role models that I actually never interact with. And so, when people ask me this question, without hesitation, my biggest role model ever is Michelle Obama. And
Okay.
yes, absolutely. And the reason for her, and also the reason why representation matters, is because prior to Michelle Obama, I had not seen, mainstream portrayal of darker skinned Black women in a dignified manner, and so based off of what I was seeing, was made to feel like maybe I didn't have much that I could contribute. I felt very small. I felt very insignificant. But, in 2008, when she stepped out on the national stage alongside her husband, and just seeing her really if I never meet this woman, if I'm never able to shake her hand and thank her in person, it would still be okay, because just seeing her was more than enough for me to aspire for that. And she made me feel like, well, she's not a superhuman or an alien. She's human just like me. And she also looks like me. So if she can do it, I absolutely can do it too. And I really
Wow.
try to
Wow.
I really try to pass that forward, in everything that I do currently. Like, even if you check out my Instagram, you will see a lot of the pictures that I try to take. They're for the purpose of that. I want other young girls that look at these pictures to feel empowered and to know that they too can be any and everything they want to be, that they don't have to settle simply because, that's what the majority of messaging that's aimed at them is saying.
Right. Wow. That's amazing. I like your description of what a role model looks like and who are some of your role models growing up. Let's talk briefly about George Mason. You got into George Mason, you
Mm-hmm.
studied there, and you graduated in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And then after graduating, you went to South Korea. What took you to South Korea, and how was your time in South Korea?
Okay, so we're going to take it back one step back to understand how I got there.
Okay.
So, actually, by the time that I was, say, a junior in George Mason University, I had heard about this fellowship program that allowed young people of color the opportunity, very competitive fellowship program, but those who ended up getting it had the opportunity to get assistance to pay for their masters. And then they had, if they passed all of their tests and met all the eligibility requirements, they had a pathway into the Foreign Service. And
Okay.
so that, and they're two, they're the Pickering, and then the one I took part in is called the Rangel Fellowship. And so, as I'm just someone who I always work backwards to frontwards, as opposed to starting at the front and going to the back, if that makes sense. And so I basically built out my strategy because I knew that this was a very competitive opportunity. And just to kind of give you a perspective on that, there were about 500 applicants by the time that I had applied. And of those, only 60 were given invitations to interview. And of those 60, only 30 were selected. And since then, it's become even more competitive. And even back then, I knew of how competitive it was. And I just wanted to, make the strongest case for myself possible. And so I looked at my resume first and I said, what is missing and what can I add that's going to enhance my application? And so the two things that I wanted to do was get more public policy experience. And then I wanted to get international experience. So actually living abroad, living in a different community, and seeing if I really had what it took to work abroad in a completely different cultural environment. So actually the first year after I graduated Mason, I spent the first year in DC. So first I was at the DC Mayor's Office on African Affairs. And then and then the second part of my year, I spent it in Congress. I worked for I interned for a member of Congress. So that way I solidified my public policy experience. And then afterwards, I wanted that international experience. So I was looking for programs that would allow me to work and live abroad. And Fulbright came up. And I mean, Fulbright is one of the best programs that allow Americans to go abroad and live and work and do research abroad. And of course, they have their international aspect as well, but just focusing on the American side of it. And so when I was looking through their list of the different posts in the different countries, all of this again was I wanted to be able to strengthen my cultural competence. So I chose South Korea for a couple different reasons. One, because again, I'm a Falls Church girl, and I grew up around a big Asian American community. And so a lot of my classmates and even close friends were from all over Asia, including Korea. I also spent several years taking Korean Taekwondo. So I was exposed to the culture in that way. And lastly, I'm someone who, my motto is, if I'm going to do it, I'm really going to do it. And so I wasn't trying to go somewhere that, was still similar to what I knew. I really wanted something that was completely different, and going into a homogenous culture that has very strict and different rules culturally from America. I knew I was going to get that. So all those reasons kind of just lined up perfectly with South Korea. And that's how I ended up there.
Wow. Okay. We're going to break this down a little bit more. Okay. So you're telling me you knew that you wanted to get into the Charles B Rangel Fellowship.
Yes.
And so you looked at your resume and you noticed that there were some things missing that would enhance your resume and make you competitive. And so because of that, you went back and do some internships, as well as also joining the Fulbright Fellowship that took you to South Korea.
Correct.
Wow. 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 I remember in 2016, and me and you were talking about the Charles B Rangel, and you had told me about it opening up, and we were discussing it, and you were preparing for it and writing your essays. I didn't get around to do it, but I know the program is highly competitive. That is a great program. Can you tell us just a little bit more about the Charles B Rangel Fellowship? What does it do for you for your master's degree?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. And I can't say enough good things about this opportunity, because the Foreign Service, which I'm now a part of, is one of the most competitive areas in the government to get into. And so, because it's a really thorough, long process that has several steps. And so the Charles B Rangel Fellowship Program was created so that, and it also tried to address a need that was missing within the Department of State, and that was more representation of people of color. And so the Charles B Rangel Fellowship basically provides bright, ambitious, young people an opportunity to pursue a career in the Foreign Service. And so it provides a very generous assistance for graduate school. Now, you have to, and I recommend anyone who's interested in these programs to definitely check out their websites, but you do have a specific amount, you do have specific degree options that you can do. So meaning like can't just go in there and do whatever you like. But you still have a lot of options, because essentially your degree has to help prepare you for a career in the Foreign Service. So it can have anything to do with international affairs. It can have anything to do with linguistics, anything to do with culture. So there are a lot of different options that you can choose from. And then throughout that whole time, you're also given mentorship. You're also given assistance as you prepare, because you still have to go through the same process as more, I guess, traditional officers. You still have to take the Foreign Service exams. And so, but you have people that have done it that are able to help you if you need it. And then, once you've met all your, also, additionally, there are 2 internship opportunities built in. So every summer, the summer prior to beginning your graduate experience, and then the summer in between your first and second year, you pursue internships with the Department of State. So one of them is domestic and one of them is abroad. And so for my abroad internship, I went back to South Korea because I was in love with the country. And also I think I knew enough about it that I knew I could kind of just hit the ground running as soon as I went back to intern for the U.S. Embassy, as opposed to like dealing with culture shock, etc. But after completing all of your requirements, then you're invited and then sworn into the Foreign Service, which is such a huge honor, again, because, it's a very competitive field, even within the U.S. government, to get into. And so to now call myself a Foreign Service officer it's really cool.
It's definitely amazing, and congratulations on that. You know that I'm proud of you for getting to this point. I know you've worked extremely hard over the years to make it to this point, and so I'm happy to hear that you have gotten to the point that you wanted to be at. And so, just talking about Foreign Service, because you've alluded to it many, many times, it is not an easy position to get into. But can you tell us what is the difference between a Foreign Service officer and an ambassador?
Oh, so when we explain our careers, oftentimes you will hear Foreign Service officers speak of ourselves as U.S. diplomats, essentially, because that's what we are. We do also have domestic posts, but for the most part, we work abroad in our U.S. embassies around the world, and we represent America, and we take care of U.S. citizens in those countries, and we promote our foreign policy interests in those countries. And the ambassador is the most senior level diplomat, essentially. So the ambassador is basically like the big boss of the embassy, and he is the most senior U.S. diplomat at any embassy or any embassy.
Wow. Okay. So before becoming a Foreign Service officer, you spent 2 years at Columbia University, an Ivy League school. How does it feel when you are at Nova telling your friends that you are going to attend an Ivy League school, and some of them were cringing or laughing at you? How does it feel when you actually stepped feet on the campus of Columbia University, and how was your 2 years there?
Yeah, okay. So first, more than just saying that I wanted to go to an Ivy League institution back when I was still at Nova, other thing that I did was I was regularly wearing blazers and dresses and very professional looking. And I remember people kind of like scoffing at that even, and saying like, why are you so dressed up? This is just Nova. It's not a big deal. You don't have to dress up. And I remember telling them, I understand, but I'm not dressing for where I currently am. I'm dressing for my future. I'm dressing for where I know I'm going. And that's something I would also offer to, your listeners, is that, don't just try to take on the mentality or behaviors of where you currently are, but always try to operate with where you know you want to be, where you see yourself. And sometimes like people can't make that connection
Uh-huh.
because they are sadly sorry, but they are kind of just existing in the now and just, existing in the current environments they're in.
Right.
But so me saying that I wanted to go to an Ivy League institution was part of that vision of me, preparing myself for something much greater. And, if I'm honest with you, I didn't actually think about, those people when I got to Colombia, because, it wasn't about that. It wasn't about them. I wasn't trying to show off.
Yeah.
It was like, this is something that I knew I wanted to do, and I was going to do everything in my power to get to it. So when I got to Colombia, I was just more so focused on being there.
Uh-huh.
And I'll be honest with you, the first couple of days was euphoric, and then it kind of took a hard dive for a second before it leveled out. Only because, it took me a while to get out of my own way. Because when I first arrived there, I was like, oh, this is Columbia University. Like I have classmates from all over the world, and you start talking yourself down and like, well, who am I compared to all of these like big people around me? And you kind of, a lot of people that I went to school with express this, but everyone goes through their own kind of journey of imposter syndrome and having to push beyond that. But I think
Mm-hmm.
like, once I started getting my groove and I started getting, good grades and good feedback from my professors, and I started taking on leadership roles on campus, all those things kind of just reminded me like, okay, no, you do deserve to be here. You don't need to feel like an imposter. So the 2 years, they were hard. I mean, they really make you work for that degree. But more than anything, the people that I met there really made the experience everything that it was. Just being able to learn from, classmates who, were diplomats in their countries that were just coming to get their degree and go back to working, or, colleagues that were former World Bank people that, again, were coming to get this degree so they can go back and get a higher position within the organization. So I try to just soak it in and learn as much as I could while I was there.
Okay. So now you are a foreign service officer. Can you tell us what is the day-to-day job look like for a foreign service officer? If you wake up today, what do you have to do as a foreign service officer?
So first, I would say that foreign service officers do a wide variety of different jobs, because the Department of State actually has a very expansive portfolio. It touches a lot of different issues, both domestically and internationally. And so
Mm-hmm.
foreign service officers have the opportunity to do, depending on their cone, depending on their job, depending on the post, all of this will, factor into what their day to day looks like. I also take a quick step back and say that within the Foreign Service, you have different cones, and that's basically your career track. So I myself am a public diplomacy officer. And so this actually, going back to what I said earlier when I mentioned that I originally left high school with the aspirations of being a journalist to now
Mm-hmm.
being in the international affairs field, my current position actually kind of marries those two perfectly,
Mm.
because public diplomacy officers abroad, we are essentially the face of the embassy. We're the
Mm-hmm.
media arm to the embassy. So we handle all media related content for the embassy. And we also do the cultural affairs programming and outreach on the ground. So through my current position, once I pursue a post where I'm actually able to perform that role, then I'll be able to do interviews, etc. So it's almost like still being able to do what you want, just not necessarily how you originally thought of it.
Mm.
But I currently am actually preparing to pursue a consular tour. So I am the one who's helping to approve visas and anything related to consular affairs in Saudi Arabia. That's my next post. And so prior to sending us abroad, the Department of State is really committed to ensuring that we have the proper training that we need so that when we get to our posts, we are able to hit the ground running. And so I'm currently in Arabic language training currently. So my day-to-day involves a lot of Arabic. Arabic is not an easy language, so I dedicate a lot of hours to it daily. And then once I wrap up my language training, I'll move on to my consular training. So that way I can know a little bit more about how to go about approving visas or reviewing applications, etc. Yeah, but then there are other foreign service officers, depending on where they are. We have incredible dedicated men and women abroad right now that are essential workers. So their day-to-day looks like they are still going, some are still going into embassies, others are teleworking, but it's still providing the services, embassy-related services for American citizens abroad, as well as other needs of the embassy. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So can you tell us, maybe you can't, but are you allowed to tell us why Saudi Arabia?
I just love the maybe you can't. So I want to go ahead and just dispel this myth that a lot of people, not you, I'm not saying you, but just a lot of people have this assumption that, I don't know, us U.S. diplomats get to kind of just walk in and claim where we want to go in the world, and that's where we go. But like with any other career, everything is all contingent on availability. And so prior to, and we get a list of available posts, and then we basically have to make our pitch to where it is that we want to go. And prior to getting the list of availabilities, I was fully prepared to go back to Korea. Korean is actually designated as one of the super hard languages within the Department of State. Arabic is also up there. So because I already had my base in Korean, I was like, if Korea is available, I would love to build this. I would love to build up my Korean fluency, and I'd love to go back to Korea because I'm just, maybe it's the tourist in me. I'm very loyal, and once I experience a country and just how much Korea changed me, any opportunity to go to Korea, I'm always down to go. But unfortunately, Korea wasn't an option. So then it was just figuring out how I wanted to start off my career, essentially. And I wanted a challenging post, and I wanted a challenging language, and I wanted a interesting experience. And so all of those factors led me to make a pitch for Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if there's anything that I can do to help you with the Arabic, I know some people that I can connect you with. Just let me know, and we can set that up.
Yeah, that would be really awesome. I mean, I think most people that when they learn a foreign language, comprehension is always higher than speaking. And so I've been at it for about 7 to 8 months at this point. So I understand quite a bit, but I think it's the speaking with different people in different environments that is really helpful, because the more you speak, the more comfortable you get with it. So the more, the merrier.
Awesome. That's good. Because I know some people here in the U.S. that also have lived in Saudi Arabia. The lady, she's actually from Eritrea, and she lived in Saudi Arabia for many years. So I can definitely connect you with her, and she can help you out. Also, maybe she might be able to provide you some information about what to do to the best of her knowledge, and what to do when you get over there. But I can set that up for sure.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Of course. All right. So we talked briefly about self-confidence. And in that scenario, there are some things that you do for yourself to build that confidence up. And a few months ago, you were certified as a trainer. you pretty much became a trainer by the National Academy of Sports Medicine. How did you get, of all the things you could do, you are a busy person. How did you manage to get a certification to become a trainer? How did that come about?
So actually, I have been in the fitness realm for quite some time at this point. I think you even, going back to Mason days, I think you remember that I've always kind of been a fitness junkie. So wanting to get my personal certification has been something that's long been on my mind. I've done a lot of personal training with like friends for free, and it was time to get paid, honestly. But truthfully, more than that, though, I'm someone who, when it comes to the things that I'm very passionate about, like I like to have a sense of like competence when in regards to them. So I wanted to be taken seriously because I had been out here like helping people, giving out fitness advice, doing personal training sessions, etc. But I felt like I wasn't being taken seriously. So I wanted that certification to like legitimize myself. And
Wow.
it's really funny because I guess it's not that funny, but I began pursuing the certification program and ended up taking and passing and getting my certificate the same week that all the states basically shut down. So
Wow.
that was a very interesting experience, but I'm still really happy that I have it. And now it's still a little too soon, but I think, if things get a little bit better, then as soon as I can, I'd love to start training.
Okay, good luck to that because I don't know how you're gonna pull off a personal training as well as being a foreign service officer, but it's Tanya, so I'm sure you know how to multitask. You're gonna make this work, but I look forward to seeing how you can make both of these things work.
No, I'm just someone that, if you give me time, I know how to fill it. So I don't know. Maybe it's growing up in an African household where if you were sitting still for 2 seconds, you were accused of being lazy. But I'm I'm a busybody. I'm always trying to get myself into something.
Right.
I'm also doing a lot of reading right now on other things that I'm interested in. So I won't speak on them just yet, but when the time comes, I can reveal those to you.
Okay, that sounds good. You are always welcome to come back and spit some knowledge. But
Thank you.
looking back, just the career path you've taken, and we talked briefly about how we are going to talk about perseverance. We're going to talk about hard work. Looking back, how did you manage to basically pay yourself through college? You went to Nova, you saved money there. You went to George Mason. How did you take care of George Mason? And then you found out about the Fulbright Fellowship program, and then you found out about the Rangel. Well, you knew about the Rangel. That was your end goal, and then you went and do the Fulbright. How did you know what to do to get to a point where you're not spending too much money that you didn't already have?
Yeah. So the very first thing was to fill out the FAFSA, which was something that I did for the first time prior to going to Nova. But actually, coming out of high school, I was a recipient of the Beat the Odds award. And so it essentially is an award which is given out to high school students who have overcome immense challenges and who have committed themselves to still pursuing higher education. And that came with a scholarship attached to it. So I had that to kind of get me started. And as you mentioned earlier, Nova was really reasonably priced. So my scholarship basically had my entire first semester covered. And then once I got to Nova, I found out that I could apply for specific scholarships there. For example, the Pathways Scholarship, which I applied to and received for 2 semesters. And then I also worked 3 part-time jobs
Wow.
to try to, I mean, it's just like you mentioned earlier, it's not always rosy, right? Sometimes you have to roll up those sleeves and really put in work for the things that you wanted. But yeah, so I also worked 3 part-time jobs, including one that was on campus and 2 that was off campus. And just like you alluded to, I think I was very proactive in finding the resources that were out there that could help me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was constantly looking online. I mean, Google is your best friend. So I was constantly looking on, what scholarships I potentially was eligible to apply to or whatever, because this wasn't a game. Like, this was my real life, So
Mm-hmm.
that fire was always underneath my feet to always try to figure out how I was going to go about it. And also there were times where there was a point where I was taking like 18 credits. And so I was essentially at campus from 8 in the morning to about like 6 p.m. And, even then I remember I didn't have enough money to be like eating campus food regularly. So what I did was every morning I would go to Aldi, which is still to this day one of my favorite grocery stores, and I would
Mm-hmm.
just buy a big box of crackers for $1, and I would just use that to sustain myself for the entire day. Because for me, my mentality was that there's no ifs, ands, or buts. I didn't even entertain the thought of failure, and I was willing to do whatever it took to succeed. And if that means that I have to temporarily have 3 jobs, if that means I have to eat dollar crackers for a couple semesters, then so be it. And I think, like, more than even the finances, more than even the trying to figure out the scholarships and other opportunities that are available to you, I think if you're someone like me who has to pay your own way through school, the most important thing is actually your mentality. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have a very aggressive, focused, determined mentality. Everything else will fall in place, but really, like, the mentality is probably the biggest factor, I would say.
Yep. I mean, we can definitely tell that you are very competitive and you
Stop
are very
it.
focused.
Wait a minute. I don't like the way that sounded.
You're competitive. I know it. I know. When we met at George Mason, I could tell you're very competitive, and so I'm not surprised as to where you are today and the things that you've been able to accomplish over this very, very short term. Like, we're talking about within 5, 6, 7 years, and you've already done amazing work. And this is just the beginning, and you're gonna be doing greater things in front of you. And so we are like this episode is a really good episode, and I hope that people that are listening to it are able to learn a thing or two from you, and just gaining the knowledge and experiences that you've accumulated over the years on how to pay for college and how to look at and prepare yourself for the future and not worry so much about the present, and the way you were dressing, preparing yourself for the future, the way you saw the end goal with the Fellowship, and then you came and prepared for it, and you put yourself in a position to be competitive and ending up being selected to a very competitive fellowship. And now you are a Foreign Service Officer with the United States government. And so now you're going to be representing the United States abroad. And so you have managed to pretty much make something out of nothing, Tanya. And so I am extremely proud of you, and you've done great things for yourself.
Thank you so much. Oh, and you're such a dear friend. So, like, you don't know how much your words actually really mean to me. And I think, like, I take that responsibility of all of people like yourself who were there for me prior to, everything finally falling in place. Like, I think about all of you guys very often, and I'm like, you got to make these people proud. Like, they're watching you. So thank you. This
Oh,
means a lot.
of course, of course. Like you said, the first thing you have to do is looking at yourself and building that self-confidence, and the fact that you're able to do that for yourself, and now all of these things are falling in place with hard work. It's a great thing. It's a great lesson to learn.
Yeah. So I just, when it comes to self-confidence, I want to make it very clear that, like, self-confidence isn't stagnant. It's not something that, like, once you reach it, then you have it. I think if you
Right.
talk to most people, they'll tell you that they feel differently every day. Like some days they feel their absolute best, and other days they don't. And to your listeners, I would offer them that, where you are not able to see positive images of your likeness, for example, in mainstream media or, within your environment, you can
Mm-hmm.
create an artificial environment that is empowering. So something as small as a little post-it note that, is above, that you tack onto your mirror that says, "You're beautiful, you got this," that you look at every morning. Or if it's like, just a picture of, or in my case, autobiography of people that I look up to, that I keep in my little library that I have next to me at all times. So, don't feel, if you don't feel as though you're getting that empowerment just passively, like don't feel as though there's nothing that you can do. Like you can absolutely create your own empowerment, environment, and truthfully also surround yourself with people who want to see you win and people who are going to pour into you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have to make those difficult decisions of distancing yourself from people who don't want to see you win, or people who are injecting negativity into your life, because all of these things are going to factor into your overall self-esteem. So, you have to take all of these factors into consideration, I think, on a daily basis, honestly.
Wow. Okay, that's gonna take us closer to the end because the information you just shared sounded like we're ending this episode. And so we asked you before coming on to the podcast to write a letter to yourself as a
Mhm.
young girl growing up, looking back, writing that letter to yourself. What did you say to that young girl coming up?
So I didn't know how young you wanted her to be. So
Uh huh.
she's a little younger than I am now.
Okay.
But yes, so my letter reads, "Dear younger Tanya, I want you to know that I'm incredibly proud of all of your accomplishments and the woman you are working towards becoming every day. Life has not always been easy, and at times you were dealt a difficult hand, but you remained focused and overcame every challenge with determination and perseverance. Your optimism, tenacity, and winner's mentality have set you up to always give it your all, regardless of how bleak the situation was. You took yourself from community college to Ivy League, from interning for senior level officials to on your way to becoming one yourself. You've proven that despite the odds, nothing is impossible when you work hard and refuse to give up. Always remember that no two journeys are alike, and always remain focused on your self improvement and on your goals. I love that you know who you are, and more importantly, whose you are. Your faith in yourself and the things that you are fighting for is unshakable. Never lose sight of your why. Stay true to who you are, remain focused on your ambitions, and positively impacting the lives of those around you. Lastly, life is a game of chess, not checkers. Never lose sight of the bigger picture in every situation. Much love and admiration, Tanya."
Wow. Okay, so I heard proud of your accomplishment. Life has not always been easy. Remain focused, perseverance, tenacity, give it your all. Community college to Ivy League, nothing is impossible. Remain focused, know who you are and whose you are. Never lose sight of your why. Always remain focused. That is amazing, Tanya. I love that letter. And I don't care how old the Tanya was, any young Tanya would gain something from that. And that is an amazing letter.
Thank you. And thank you for offering this. When you told me that you asked your guests to write this in the beginning, I was a bit taken aback, and I didn't really know how I was going to go about it. But it was such a beautiful, reflective exercise that I did. So thank you for providing that opportunity.
Of course, that's the goal here. We are here to tell stories and share our experiences and knowledge so that hopefully the younger person that listens to this podcast can gain something from that and not make the same mistakes, or at least they have a guiding light to help them get to where they need to get to faster than we did. And so that being said, Do you have any last minute words or wisdom that you want to offer to the fans?
Words of wisdom. Yes. I first and foremost, I would say take pride in your appearance, take pride in your work ethic, and take pride in your work. I just feel like nowadays, sometimes it's trendy to pretend like you don't care, or sometimes it's even a way to try to seem more relatable to kind of, I guess, talk down yourself. But at the end of the day, you can always empower other people without having to dim yourself down. And people cannot help you unless you're putting out there the things that you want. So meaning that you might be missing out on an opportunity for mentoring, or you might be missing out on an opportunity to do something because you're too busy trying to downplay yourself. But for me, I think, for example, just the way that I speak, at a very young age, a teacher at my elementary school pointed that out to me. She was like, "You have really good public speaking skills," and she recommended me to take part in the speech contest. And really, like, I didn't take it seriously then, but a couple years later, I remember thinking about it and was like, she might have something here. So knowing that this was a skill that I possessed, I really exploited it, and every opportunity that I could to speak, I did. And that's what opened doors for me. Like I mentioned, the ambassador to the African Union, he just happened to be in the audience of one of the events that I gave a keynote speech to. And my speech alone for him was what convinced him to invite me to come intern with him for the following summer. So don't be afraid to just be who you are fully. Don't worry about what other people may feel, because everyone's on their own separate journeys, and you can't internalize other people's issues. But I think just try to be a positive light, just try to be a source of positivity, and just take pride in everything you're doing, because at the end of the day, whether we like to think about it or not, we are all walking brands, and everything from the way that we dress to the way we present ourselves to what we do is all being factored into how people perceive us. So you always want to make sure you put your best foot forward in any environment that you go into. And the second thing I would say is, like, don't get discouraged. For every one win that I've gotten, I promise you that there has been 10, 15 rejection letters. But you can't allow that to, first of all, never take it personally, never internalize that and think that that in some way reflects onto you personally. It just means that there were other candidates that they felt better matched what it was they were trying to do. And never give up on yourself, because truthfully, if I could go back and do this all over again, I would do it the exact same way. I think that all the appropriate opportunities for me fell when they were supposed to. And so no one should ever get discouraged just for getting a couple rejection letters, because it's something that all of us who have had a lot of different accomplishments can, if we're honest, we will let you know that we've had a ton more rejections.
Right, definitely. But you know how things go. Normally on social media, we post about the wins and not so much about the rejections.
Absolutely. And that's another good point, is like, don't take social media as a, honest reflection of anyone's life, because people just choose to post their highs. But, know that everyone goes through their own sets of challenges, and it doesn't make them any more better than you. Just focus on you and your journey always. That's what I always say.
Awesome. Tanya, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you about this podcast. Like I said, you have the opportunity to come back before going to Saudi Arabia, or while you're in Saudi Arabia. You can always come back and share your experiences there with us. We have a lot more to talk about. We didn't get too deep into your life experience in South Korea, but maybe next time we meet again, we'll talk about South Korea in more detail, as well as Saudi Arabia to come. And then we can talk about both countries, the differences, the similarities, and the things that you're learning about the food, the culture, all those things. We will save that for another podcast. Thank you so much again for coming here, and thank you for spending the time with us.
My pleasure. And I look forward to coming back.
Awesome. To keep up with Tanya and following her work, you can add her on her Instagram at Queen T Carey. It's QUEEN, the letter TCARRIE. Thank you. There you have it, everybody. If you're listening to this still, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for listening through and through. Make sure if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button so you can get this automatically downloaded the next time new episodes come out. We have a lot more experiences and stories to tell, and I cannot wait to share them with you. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Reviews are always appreciated. Thank you. I appreciate you, and let me know what you think on our Instagram at Verdad Duele Pod. Our team is here to serve you. We look forward to hearing about your successes, and maybe one day we may invite you to the studio to share. We wish you luck. The Verdad Duele family has your back. Thank you so much.